Behind the grand facades of history, some families held more power, more wealth, and more secrets than any other. The Habsburgs, rulers of vast empires, for centuries left behind a legacy of opulence, political maneuvering, and deeply personal struggles. Their portraits, hanging in the world's most prestigious galleries, are not merely works of art, they are time capsules, each brushstroke a whispered story, every detail a clue to a life lived under the unblinking eye of the public and the crushing weight of destiny. A world existed where every royal smile, every carefully chosen garment, every subtle gesture captured on canvas held a deeper meaning, a secret that could ripple through an entire dynasty. These 10 paintings are among the most celebrated. But what if the canvas itself held more untold narratives, more human dramas than you ever suspected? Get ready to look beyond the gilded frames and into the private worlds of emperors, empresses, and their children, whose fates were often sealed long before they ever posed for a master artist. Number 10. Ferdinand I, Holy Roman Emperor, by Hans Boxberger the Elder. This portrait captures a man at the heart of an empire, yet often overshadowed by his more famous older brother, Ferdinand I. Born in 1503 in Alcalá de Henares, Spain, was the younger brother of the mighty Emperor Charles V. His early life was marked by a constant negotiation of his place within the sprawling Habsburg family and its vast dominions. He grew up in Spain, deeply immersed in its culture and language, but his destiny pulled him east towards the Germanic lands. Ferdinand arrived in the Holy Roman Empire as a young man largely unfamiliar with its customs and its people. His brother, Charles V, ruler of an empire upon which the sun never set, needed a trusted representative in Central Europe. In 1521, Charles formally granted Ferdinand the Austrian hereditary lands, a significant step that cemented the division of the Habsburg family into Spanish and Austrian branches. This was not a simple handover. It came with immense responsibilities and a constant need for diplomacy and military readiness. Ferdinand had to learn German, understand the complex politics of the imperial states, and manage the growing storm of the Protestant Reformation. He became a crucial figure in the defense against the Ottoman Empire, leading forces and engaging in diplomatic efforts to secure the empire's eastern borders. Contemporary reports detail his diligent nature, his commitment to his duties, and his pragmatic approach to governance, a stark contrast to his brother's more sweeping, often idealist, ambitions. He married Anna of Bohemia and Hungary in 1521, a union that brought him the crowns of both kingdoms after her brother Louis II died tragically at the Battle of Mohacs in 1526. This marriage transformed his position from a mere archduke to a king, adding immense territories and responsibilities to his already heavy burden. His court became a center of Renaissance culture in Vienna, drawing scholars, artists, and musicians from across Europe. He was known for his love of hunting and his methodical approach to the affairs of state, often working late into the night. The Portrait of Ferdinand I by Hans Boxberger the Elder, painted around 1548, shows him in a sober, dignified manner, reflecting the gravitas of his role as King of the Romans, a title he held before becoming Holy Roman Emperor in 1558. The painting was likely commissioned as part of a series of portraits of Habsburg rulers, designed to project an image of continuity and authority at a time of immense religious and political upheaval. Boxberger, a prominent painter in the region, was known for his ability to capture the likeness and character of his subjects with a straightforward realism. The creation of the portrait would have involved multiple sittings, as was typical for such detailed works. The artist focused on capturing Ferdinand's intellectual and somewhat reserved demeanor. Historical accounts often detail Ferdinand's meticulous attention to detail in his administrative work, a trait that is subtly echoed in the precise brushwork of the portrait. In the portrait, Ferdinand is depicted almost frontally, his gaze direct and unwavering, conveying a sense of quiet authority. He wears a dark, rich robe lined with fur, a symbol of his high status and the wealth of his office. Around his neck hangs the Order of the Golden Fleece, Oberst's dynastic order of knighthood, signifying his noble lineage and connection to the most powerful families in Europe. His beard is neatly trimmed and his hair is dark, showing touches of gray. His face, while unsmiling, does not convey harshness, but rather a thoughtful, perhaps even weary, intelligence. The background is simple and dark, drawing all attention to the figure himself, highlighting his individual presence and the weight of his responsibilities. There are no elaborate settings or grand gestures. The focus is entirely on the man in his office. The subtle rendering of light and shadow on his face brings out the contours of his features, suggesting a man who has faced many challenges and carries the burdens of leadership. His hands are not visible, further emphasizing his face and the symbols of his office. The details of the fur and fabric are rendered with precision, showing the artist's skill and the luxurious nature of imperial dress. After this portrait was painted, Ferdinand continued his arduous work, governing the Austrian lands and managing the complex religious landscape of the Holy Roman Empire. When his brother Charles V made the shocking decision to abdicate his vast empire in 1556, the Holy Roman Empire passed to Ferdinand. This elevated him to the apex of European power, though he inherited an empire deeply divided by the Reformation and constantly threatened by external powers. He pursued policies of religious compromise and worked tirelessly to maintain peace within the empire. A contrast to Charles V's more confrontational approach. Historical records often detail his efforts to convene religious colloquies and to find middle ground between Catholics and Protestants, a task of immense difficulty in that era. He ruled until his death in 1564, leaving behind a more stable, though still challenging, situation for his successors. His reign saw the consolidation of the Austrian Habsburg power and the establishment of Vienna as a major European capital. He was known to enjoy intellectual pursuits, collecting books and engaging with scholars on various subjects from botany to astronomy. One of the intriguing aspects of this portrait is its understated depiction of a monarch who was a master of political pragmatism. While Charles V often projected an image of absolute, divinely ordained power, Ferdinand's portrait shows a man of quiet determination. It is said that Ferdinand preferred direct, efficient communication and had little patience for pomp and circumstance, traits perhaps reflected in the portrait's sober realism. His brother's abdication meant Ferdinand had to step into truly massive shoes, and this portrait, created before that final ascent, subtly captures the serious, almost burdened aspect of a man already bearing immense responsibility. Contemporary chroniclers sometimes noted Ferdinand's tendency towards melancholy, particularly in his later years, a characteristic that might be subtly hinted at in the portrait's somewhat solemn expression. The painting stands as a testament to a ruler who, despite his immense power, preferred diligent administration and quiet diplomacy to flamboyant display, a true reflection of the Austrian Habsburg spirit that would define the dynasty for centuries to come. Number 9. Emperor Rudolf II as Vertumnus by Giuseppe Arcimbolda. This is not your typical royal portrait. Forget the stern faces and flowing robes. This painting explodes with an unexpected creativity, mirroring the complex and often reclusive mind of its subject. Emperor Rudolf II. Born in Vienna in 1552, Rudolf was the son of Emperor Maximilian II and Maria of Spain. His childhood was heavily influenced by the Spanish court, where he was educated. He was a quiet, introverted child, prone to melancholy and deeply religious. This upbringing in Spain, a bastion of counter-Reformation Catholicism, shaped his views profoundly. When he returned to Vienna, his artistic and scientific interests began to blossom, often diverting him from the more mundane aspects of imperial governance. Rudolf became Holy Roman Emperor in 1576, moving his court to Prague, where he created a unique intellectual and artistic center. He was a passionate collector, amassing an astounding array of art, scientific instruments, natural curiosities, and rare books. His Kunstkammer, or cabinet of curiosities, was legendary, filled with everything from ancient coins to exotic animal specimens, alchemical apparatus, and masterpieces of painting and sculpture. This collection reflected his insatiable curiosity and his deep engagement with the natural world, philosophy, and the occult sciences. He was fascinated by alchemy, astrology, and magic, believing these pursuits could unlock the secrets of the universe. However, his reclusiveness and increasing withdrawal from political affairs led to growing tensions with his family and within the empire. He often preferred the company of his scholars, alchemists, and artists to the demands of statecraft. His health was also a concern, with reports of bouts of depression and anxiety affecting his ability to govern effectively. Giuseppe Arcimboldo, the Milanese painter, known for his composite heads made of fruits, vegetables, animals, and objects, created this remarkable portrait of Rudolf II around 1591. The painting was a testament to the emperor's unique personality and his patronage of the arts. Arcimboldo was a favorite artist at Rudolf's court in Prague, perfectly suited to the emperor's taste for the unusual and the symbolic. The commission for this specific portrait was likely born out of a desire to create a truly original and flattering image of the emperor, one that celebrated his connection to nature and his role as a bringer of abundance. The creation process would have been meticulous, involving not just artistic skill but also a deep knowledge of botanical forms and their symbolic meanings. It was a complex intellectual exercise as much as a painting. Records from the court indicate that Rudolf himself was deeply involved in the selection of artists and the themes of his commissions, suggesting he likely approved of and admired Arcimboldo's highly stylized approach. In the portrait, Rudolf II is not depicted with traditional robes or crowns. Instead, his face and body are composed entirely of fruits, vegetables, and flowers, arranged in a way that suggests a human form. His hair is made of grapes, his nose a pear, his cheek an apple, his lips a peach. His lips are cherries, and his eyes are dark berries. His body is a pumpkin, and his shoulders are gourds. Various seasonal plants, flowers, and ears of corn emerge from his form. The overall impression is one of lush abundance, a vibrant celebration of nature's bounty. The colors are rich and warm, dominated by greens, reds, and yellows. The composition is surprisingly cohesive, forming a recognizable likeness of the emperor, despite its unconventional medium. The title Vertumnus refers to the Roman god of seasons, change, and plant growth, emphasizing Rudolf's role as a benevolent ruler who brought prosperity and flourishing to his lands. Every element chosen by Arcimboldo was deliberate, contributing to the symbolic message of fertility, peace, and good government under Rudolf's reign. The fine details of each individual fruit and vegetable are rendered with scientific precision, shooting Arcimboldo's observational skill. Following the painting of Vertumnus, Rudolf II continued to retreat from public life, his artistic and scientific pursuits often taking precedence over political obligations. His reclusiveness and increasing mental instability led to a power struggle within his own family. His brother Matthias eventually stripped him of his powers and territories, culminating in Rudolf's deposition as Holy Roman Emperor in 1611, just a year before his death in 1612. Despite his political failures, Rudolf's reign is remembered as a golden age for the arts and sciences. In Prague, he continued to collect until his final days, surrounded by the wonders of his Kunstkammer. His patronage transformed Prague into a hub for astronomers like Tycho Brahe and Johannes Kepler, and for innovative artists like Arcimboldo. The painting itself became a prized possession within the imperial collection. Admired for its ingenuity and its unique representation of the monarch, one of the most intriguing aspects of this portrait lies in its deep symbolism and the private world it reveals. While it appears whimsical, it was a serious statement. The choice of Vertumnus was not just about fertility. It also represented transformation and the changing seasons, perhaps subtly hinting at the dynamic and evolving nature of Rudolf's intellectual pursuits, or even his own fluctuating moods. It is also rumored that Arcimboldo subtly incorporated elements into the portrait that reflected Rudolf's specific medical conditions or personal quirks, though these are open to much art historical debate. For example, some scholars have suggested certain vegetables might allude to specific diets or health remedies that Rudolf was known to pursue. The painting also served as a powerful declaration of Rudolf's humanist ideals and his connection to the natural world, a stark contrast to the more traditional military or religious depictions of other rulers. It stands as a unique window into the mind of a truly extraordinary, if troubled, monarch who saw beauty and meaning in the most unexpected places. Number 8. Joanna the Mad by Juan de Fland. This portrait captures a figure consumed by profound grief and sorrow, a woman whose life was irrevocably shaped by tragedy and political machinations. Joanna, born in 1479 in Toledo, Spain, was the third child of Isabella, the first of Castile, and Ferdinand II of Aragon, the powerful Catholic monarchs who unified Spain and sponsored Christopher Columbus. From a young age, Joanna displayed a keen intelligence and a deep interest in literature and music. She was educated for a life of royal marriage, a pawn in the intricate European power games. Unlike her more politically ambitious siblings, Joanna was described as highly sensitive and intensely emotional, characteristics that would tragically define her later life. In 1496, Joanna was married to Philip the Handsome, Archduke of Austria, Duke of Burgundy, and son of the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I. This union was part of a grand Habsburg-Trastamara alliance, designed to encircle France. Their marriage was initially passionate, almost tempestuous, marked by intense devotion but also fierce jealousy on Joanna's part due to Philip's infidelities. Despite the personal turmoil, their union produced 6 children, including the future emperors Charles V and Ferdinand I. However, a series of devastating personal losses began to unravel Joanna's mental stability. The death of her older brother Juan, and then her older sister Isabella, and Isabella's infant son, meant that Joanna unexpectedly became the heiress to the vast kingdoms of Castile and Aragon. This sudden shift in her destiny, combined with her deep emotional attachment to Philip and his growing political ambitions, pushed her to the brink. Historical documents and contemporary letters frequently describe Joanna's growing melancholy and erratic behavior, often attributed to her profound love for Philip and her inability to control his affections. Juan de Fland, a court painter of Spanish Burgundian origin, painted this poignant portrait of Joanna, 1500 to 1504, a period preceding her most intense sorrows, but already hinting at the fragility of her emotional state. Juan de Fland was a master of the Northern Renaissance style, known for his meticulous detail and psychological depth. This portrait was likely commissioned as part of a series of family portraits, intended to solidify the image of the royal succession and to present the future queen in a dignified manner. The artist worked closely with the royal family, capturing their likenesses with striking realism. The choice of such a direct, almost confrontational pose suggests an attempt to convey her character beyond mere regal formality. Court records from the time show that artists were often given considerable freedom to portray the internal lives of their subjects, especially within the context of private commissions. In the portrait, Joanna is depicted in a dark, modest dress, unadorned by the usual lavish jewels of a princess of her standing. Her head is covered by a dark veil which frames her pale face. Her eyes, dark and heavy-lidded, gaze out with an expression of profound sadness, almost resignation. Her lips are slightly parted as if she's about to sigh or whisper a sorrow. Her hands are clasped tightly together, a gesture that conveys tension and inner turmoil. The background is simple. and dark, devoid of any distracting elements, drawing all attention to her face and its powerful emotional impact. There is a palpable sense of vulnerability in her posture and expression. Unlike many royal portraits that aim to project power and grandeur, this painting offers a raw, unfiltered glimpse into the soul of its subject. The subtle shading around her eyes and mouth captures the deep lines of a person grappling with intense emotional distress. The very simplicity of her attire seems to underscore her mental state, stripping away the external trappings of royalty to reveal the suffering woman beneath. The tragedy in Joanna's life intensified dramatically after this portrait was painted. In 1506, her beloved husband Philip died unexpectedly, possibly from typhoid fever. His death plunged Joanna into a deep, inconsolable grief that manifested in increasingly erratic behavior, including famously refusing to allow his coffin to be buried for extended periods, carrying it with her on her travels. This episode, combined with her perceived mental instability, was exploited by her father, Ferdinand II, and later by her son, Charles V, to effectively sideline her from power. She was confined for decades, primarily in the castle of Tordesillas, until her death in 1555. Despite her official title as Queen of Castile, her regency was almost entirely nominal, with her father and son ruling in her stead. Historical accounts frequently describe her as a recluse in her later years, surrounded by a small retinue, her existence a political inconvenience for the rising power of the Habsburg Empire. The most profound, secret, or intriguing aspect of this portrait lies in its prophetic nature. Painted before the full force of her personal tragedies and subsequent political imprisonment, it seems to capture a premonition of her fate. The sadness in her eyes is not merely a transient mood, but appears to reflect a deeper, melancholic disposition that would define her life. Art historians often discuss how this painting stands apart from typical royal portraiture by its raw, emotional honesty, daring to portray a monarch's vulnerability. It is a testament to Juan de Flanders' skill that he could capture such psychological depth. Furthermore, the decision to portray her so starkly, without the usual symbols of power, might suggest an early recognition of her fragile mental state, or perhaps an attempt by her family to subtly justify future actions. The portrait serves as a powerful, silent witness to the profound personal cost of dynastic ambition and the devastating impact of mental illness in a world ill-equipped to understand or treat it. Number 7. Emperor Franz Joseph I. In old age, this portrait captures a monarch whose life spanned an incredible 70 years. On the throne, a man who became a living symbol of an empire increasingly out of step with the modern world. Franz Joseph, the first born in 1830 in Schönbrunn Palace, Vienna, was the nephew of the childless Emperor Ferdinand I. His childhood was marked by rigorous discipline and a strict education aimed at preparing him for his destined role. He was raised with a strong sense of duty and a deeply conservative outlook. The revolutions of 1848, which swept across Europe, dramatically accelerated his path to power. Amidst the chaos and calls for reform, his uncle Ferdinand abdicated, and his father, Archduke Franz Karl, renounced his claim. Thus, at the tender age of 18, Franz Joseph ascended to the throne of the vast, multi-ethnic Habsburg Empire. His early reign was characterized by a determined effort to restore order and reassert imperial authority after the revolutionary turmoil. He navigated numerous wars, including conflicts with Sardinia and Prussia, which led to significant territorial losses and a reorientation of the empire. Internally, he faced the constant challenge of managing the diverse nationalities within his realm: Hungarians, Czechs, Poles, Croats, and many others, all seeking greater autonomy. His marriage to the beautiful and free-spirited Elizabeth, famously known as Sisi, was deeply complex and often unhappy, marked by her struggles with court life and her longing for personal freedom. They had 4 children, but personal grief struck repeatedly with the death of their eldest daughter, Sophie, in infancy, and later the suicide of their only son and heir, Crown Prince Rudolf, at Mayerling in 1889. Years later, his wife Empress Elizabeth was assassinated in Geneva in 1898. These profound losses left deep scars on the Stoic emperor, making him a figure of immense public sympathy, but also increasing his sense of isolation. Many portraits of Franz Joseph exist, but one of the most compelling is a photograph, later often adapted into paintings, of him in his later years, typically after the turn of the 20th century. These images were often produced by court photographers and painters like Iyard and Gili or Leopold Horowitz. These late-life depictions were frequently commissioned to project an image of stability and continuity in an increasingly volatile world. The sheer longevity of his reign meant that he became an iconic figure across Europe, a symbol of a bygone era. The creation of such portraits was a regular part of royal life, serving both official and personal functions, often distributed widely to reinforce loyalty across the empire. The artists would spend considerable time with the emperor, noting his precise features and the weight of his years. In these late-life portraits, Franz Joseph is typically shown in his military uniform, adorned with numerous medals and decorations, a testament to his role as supreme commander and his long years of service. His posture is erect almost rigidly, so reflecting his military training and his unyielding sense of duty. Yet his face tells a different story. His features are deeply etched with lines and wrinkles, particularly around his eyes, which often convey a sense of profound weariness and sorrow. His famous sideburns and mustache are white, a stark contrast to his dark uniform. His gaze is often distant, contemplative, as if looking back on a long and difficult journey. The setting is usually austere, perhaps a study or a simple backdrop, emphasizing the man rather than grand imperial splendor. The details of his uniform are rendered with precision from the epaulets to the buttons, reflecting the exacting standards of the Habsburg court. The light often highlights the silver of his hair and the solemnity of his expression. There is a sense of immense solitude in these images, a man who has outlived much of his family and seen his world transformed beyond recognition. After these late portraits were captured, Franz Joseph continued his arduous duties, upholding the traditions of his vast, multi-ethnic empire. He witnessed the rapid industrialization of his lands, the rise of nationalism among his various peoples, and the escalating international tensions that would eventually engulf Europe. The assassination of his nephew and heir, Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo in 1914, directly triggered World War I. Despite his advanced age and his personal aversion to war, Franz Joseph felt compelled by duty to lead his empire into the catastrophic conflict. He ruled throughout the early years of the war, witnessing his empire's decline and suffering immense casualties. He died in November 1916 at the age of 86, still on the throne having ruled for 68 years. His death marked the effective end of an era, and just 2 years later, his empire disintegrated, bringing a centuries-old dynasty to its ultimate end. He spent his final years working tirelessly, often alone, seemingly sustained only by his ingrained sense of responsibility to his family. One of the most profound secrets or intriguing aspects of these late-life portraits lies in their unwitting portrayal of a dying empire. While intended to show continuity and stability, the profound weariness etched on Franz Joseph's face seems to reflect the immense strain on the Habsburg monarchy itself. Art historians often discuss how these images capture a ruler who, despite his stoicism, was deeply affected by personal and political tragedies, and who perhaps sensed the approaching demise of his world. There are whispers that the emperor himself preferred these unvarnished, almost stark representations, as they accurately depicted the weight of his long reign and the many sorrows he had endured. He was known for his simple tastes and his preference for military uniform over civilian attire, a reflection of his disciplined nature. The subtle lines around his eyes are not merely signs of age. They are a chronicle of grief, responsibility, and the crushing burden of holding together a crumbling mosaic of nations. The portrait serves as a poignant epitaph for a monarch who embodied duty until his last breath. A silent witness to the end of an imperial age. Number 6. Maria Theresa as Queen of Hungary by Martin van Muytens. This portrait captures a formidable woman at the height of her power, a ruler who defied expectations and shaped an empire. Maria Theresa, born in Vienna in 1717, was the eldest daughter of Emperor Charles VI. Her early life was relatively sheltered, focused on traditional aristocratic education, including languages, history, and the arts. However, her father's inability to produce a male heir meant that Maria Theresa was destined for the throne. Her father spent much of his reign trying to secure the Pragmatic Sanction, a legal document that would guarantee her succession to the Habsburg hereditary lands, overriding traditional Salic law which often excluded women from inheriting. Despite these efforts, her right to rule was immediately challenged upon her father's death in 1740. Her ascension triggered the War of the Austrian Succession, an 8-year conflict that tested her resolve and leadership from its very beginning. She faced invasion from Prussia, Bavaria, France, and Saxony, all eager to carve up the vast Habsburg territories. During this time, she famously appealed to the Hungarian nobles for support, appearing before their diet in Pressburg, modern-day Bratislava, with her infant son Joseph, a scene of immense dramatic power. Her impassioned plea won their loyalty, providing her with crucial military aid. She was a deeply devoted mother, eventually bearing 16 children, including the future emperors Joseph II and Leopold II, and the ill-fated Queen Marie Antoinette of France. Her personal life was intertwined with her political duties, balancing the demands of a vast empire with a large and growing family. She was known for her immense work ethic, often rising early and working late into the night. Martin van Muytens, a prominent portrait painter from Sweden who became court painter to the Habsburgs, created this powerful portrait of Maria Theresa around 1744 to 1745. During the height of the War of the Austrian Succession, the painting was commissioned to project an image of strength, legitimacy, and sovereignty at a crucial moment for the empress. Muytens was renowned for his ability to capture regal grandeur and the distinct personalities of his subjects. The creation of this portrait would have been a significant undertaking, requiring multiple sittings and the careful arrangement of symbolic elements. Historical accounts describe Maria Theresa's preference for images that highlighted her role as a capable and divinely appointed ruler, particularly as she sought to assert her authority over numerous male claimants to her throne. The artwork was also intended for widespread dissemination, to reinforce her image across her vast and diverse territories. In the portrait, Maria Theresa is depicted in an elaborate coronation robe, rich with gold embroidery and ermine fur, signifying her royal status. On her head rests the magnificent crown of St. Stephen, the sacred crown of Hungary, a symbol of her legitimate claim to that kingdom and a direct visual argument against her challengers. Her posture is upright and confident, her right hand resting firmly on a scepter, another emblem of imperial power. Her left hand gestures subtly towards the crown, further emphasizing her right to rule. Her expression is serious and determined, her eyes meeting the viewer's gaze with unwavering resolve. She does not smile. Instead, her features convey an unyielding will and sharp intelligence. The background features a deep red curtain, providing a regal backdrop and perhaps a glimpse of a throne or other imperial regalia. The meticulous detail in the rendering of her clothing, the jewels, and the texture of the ermine fur stirs the opulence and power of the Habsburg court. Her coiffure is elegant and elaborate, further accentuating her commanding presence. After this portrait was painted, Maria Theresa solidified her hold on power, eventually concluding the War of the Austrian Succession. Though she lost Silesia to Prussia, she emerged from the conflict with her core lands intact and her position as monarch secured. Her reign, which lasted until her death in 1780, was one of the most tool in Habsburg history. She implemented widespread reforms in the military education, medicine, and administrations, laying the foundations for a modern state. She founded the Therian Military Academy, the University of Innsbruck, and the first medical faculty in Vienna. Her reforms in the justice system were also groundbreaking for their time. She was deeply religious and believed firmly in her divine right to rule, but she also understood the need for practical governance. She personally oversaw the education of many of her children, managing the complex dynastic marriages that would connect the Habsburgs to almost every major European royal house. Her relentless work ethic and her dedication to her subjects earned her the title Mother of the Nation. One of the most intriguing aspects of this portrait lies in its defiance. Painted at a time when her very right to rule was being violently contested, it is a bold visual declaration of her legitimacy and power. The inclusion of the crown of St. Stephen is not merely decorative. It is a direct political statement asserting her sovereignty over Hungary, a kingdom whose support was crucial to her survival. Art historians often discuss how Matins perfectly captured Maria Theresa's blend of regal authority and fierce determination, a reflection of her true character as described by contemporary observers. It is rumored that she personally insisted on the inclusion of certain elements in the portrait to emphasize her unique position as a female ruler in a male-dominated world, though specific details are hard to verify. The painting subtly conveys her intelligence and her unwavering focus on duty qualities that allowed her to not only survive the initial challenges, but to thrive and transform her empire, solidifying her legacy as one of Europe's greatest monarchs. Number 5. Philip II of Spain in armor by Titian. This portrait shows a king burdened by immense power and a profound sense of religious destiny, his stern gaze reflecting the weight of his vast global empire. Philip II, born in Valladolid, Spain, in 1527, was the only legitimate son of Emperor Charles V and Isabella of Portugal. From his earliest years, he was meticulously educated to inherit the vast Spanish Habsburg patrimony, a sprawling collection of territories that included Spain, its American colonies, the Netherlands, parts of Italy, and Portugal. His father, Charles V, abdicated his throne in stages, eventually passing the Spanish crowns and the Netherlands to Philip, while the Holy Roman Empire went to his brother, Ferdinand I. This handover cemented Philip's role as the most powerful monarch in Europe. Philip's reign was characterized by an intense devotion to Catholicism, a relentless drive to expand Spanish influence, and continuous military and political engagements across Europe and beyond. He faced the challenges of the Protestant Reformation in the Netherlands, the threat of the Ottoman Empire in the Mediterranean, and constant rivalry with France and England. He was a meticulous administrator, often spending hours reading and annotating dispatches from his various territories. He was a reserved and solitary man, deeply pious, and often perceived as cold or aloof by those outside his inner circle. His private life was marked by multiple marriages, all for dynastic and political reasons, and by a series of personal losses. He was married 4 times, first to Maria Manuela of Portugal, then to Mary I of England, then to Elizabeth of Valois of France, and finally to Anna of Austria. Each marriage was a strategic alliance, shaping the Julian landscape of Europe. Titian, the Venetian master of Renaissance portraiture, painted this powerful portrait of Philip II around 1551, when Philip was still a prince. Titian was a favorite artist of the Habsburgs, having already created iconic portraits of Philip's father, Charles V. This commission was crucial, designed to present the young heir as a formidable and worthy successor to his all-powerful father. It was a visual declaration of his emerging authority and military prowess. Titian was known for his ability to convey psychological depth and for his rich, vibrant use of color. The sittings for this portrait likely took place in Augsburg or Madrid, where Titian traveled to work for the imperial court. Records from the period indicated Philip greatly admired Titian's work, appreciating the way the artist captured a sense of gravitas and power. In the portrait, Philip II is depicted in a full suit of gleaming dark armor, standing in a 3-quarter pose against a dark, somber background. The armor is intricately detailed, reflecting the light in subtle ways. trading both its protective function and its aesthetic beauty. His right hand rests on a helmet placed on the table beside him, while his left hand holds the pommel of his sword, a symbol of military readiness and command. On his breastplate he wears the Order of the Golden Fleece, a testament to his high noble status. His face, framed by a short, neatly trimmed beard, is solemn and unsmiling. His eyes are dark and piercing, directly meeting the viewer's gaze, conveying a sense of unwavering determination and intellectual intensity. The light source highlights the contours of his face and the metallic sheen of his armor, creating a dramatic effect. The overall impression is one of immense power, controlled strength, and a somewhat austere seriousness. The color palette is rich, but restrained, focusing on deep browns, grays, and the metallic gleam of the armor. After this portrait was painted, Philip II ascended to the throne and embarked on a reign that would leave an indelible mark on European history. He constructed the vast monastery palace of El Escorial, a monument to his piety and administrative zeal. He dispatched the Spanish Armada against England in 1588, an ambitious but ultimately failed attempt to conquer the Protestant kingdom. He inherited an empire facing the constant drain of war and the challenges of governing distant lands. And though he managed to expand Spain's influence in many areas, his later years were marked by financial difficulties and growing internal discontent. He died in 1598, having shaped Spain into a global superpower, though one that carried the seeds of its future decline. Throughout his reign, he maintained a strict, almost monastic, daily routine, focused on prayer, administration, and limited personal interaction. One of the most intriguing aspects of this portrait lies in its subtle foreshadowing of Philip's future reign. While it projects military might, the expression on his face hints at the immense intellectual and religious intensity that would define him. There is a certain gravity, almost a burden, already present in his youthful features. Art historians often discuss how Titian managed to capture not just a likeness, but the very essence of Philip's complex personality, a man driven by faith and duty, but also prone to deep suspicion and a relentless, sometimes isolating, focus on his responsibilities. The choice of armor rather than more elaborate royal robes emphasizes his role as a defender of the faith and a military leader, a role he would embody throughout his life. There are whispers that Philip himself was uncomfortable with overt displays of pomp, preferring a more practical and austere image, a preference that Titian perfectly captured. The portrait is a silent witness to the mind of a king who, though at the zenith of power, would always be defined by his unwavering adherence to his convictions. A true monarch of the Counter-Reformation. Number 4. Empress Elizabeth Sisi of Austria, in Stars by Franz Xaver Winterhalter. This portrait captures the ethereal beauty and enigmatic spirit of a woman who became a legend, an empress who famously chafed against the rigid confines of court life. Elizabeth Amalie Eugenie, born in Munich in 1837, was a duchess. In Bavaria, a member of a junior branch of the Wittelsbach royal family. Her childhood was unconventional for a royal spent largely at Posenhofen Castle, a relaxed bohemian upbringing that fostered her love for nature, horses, and poetry. She was free-spirited, intelligent, and deeply sensitive, qualities that would later clash dramatically with the strictures of the Habsburg court. At the age of 16, Elizabeth was chosen to marry her cousin, the young Emperor Franz Joseph I of Austria, in 1854. What was initially intended as a charming match quickly soured. The rigid Habsburg court, with its endless protocols and constant public scrutiny, suffocated the free-spirited Sisi. She struggled with imperial duties, public appearances, and the oppressive presence of her mother-in-law, Archduchess Sophie, who largely took over the upbringing of her children. To cope with the pressures, Elizabeth developed an obsessive focus on her physical appearance, her famously tiny waist, and her immensely long, thick hair. She embarked on a lifelong quest for personal freedom, seeking solace in extensive travel rigorous exercise, and a passionate devotion to poetry. Her life was also marked by deep personal tragedies, including the loss of her eldest daughter as an infant and the devastating suicide of her only son, Crown Prince Rudolf at Merling. Franz Aver Winterhalter, a German portrait painter who was a favorite of European royalty, created this iconic portrait of Empress Elizabeth in 1865. This particular painting, often called Sisi in Stars or Empress Elizabeth in court gown with diamond stars, was commissioned by the emperor himself. It became one of the most famous images of the empress, capturing her legendary beauty and her somewhat melancholic charm. Winterhalter was renowned for his ability to flatter his subjects, while retaining a sense of their personality, often giving his royal sitters a romanticized aura. The creation of this portrait was a meticulous process, focusing on the intricate details of her gown and the dazzling diamond stars that adorned her hair. It was a crucial work meant to project an image of imperial splendor and the captivating allure of the empress. Records show that Elizabeth herself was highly particular about her appearance and how she was portrayed, often having a hand in the choice of attire for her sittings. In the portrait, Elizabeth is depicted in a magnificent white ball gown, intricately embroidered with silver and gold, designed specifically for a court ball. The gown's off-the-shoulder style reveals her famously. Slender shoulders and delicate décolleté. Her incredibly long dark chestnut hair, her crowning glory, cascades down over her shoulders and back, interwoven with diamond stars. These stars, a gift from her husband, became her signature accessory, their brilliance mimicking the sparkle of her eyes. Her head is slightly turned, and her gaze is directed away from the viewer, imparting a sense of introspection and perhaps a touch of sadness or a yearning for something beyond the frame. Her complexion is flawless, her features delicate and refined. The background is simple and dark, allowing the viewer's full attention to be drawn to the empress and the exquisite details of her attire. The subtle play of light on the diamonds and the texture of her hair adds to the almost dreamlike quality of the image. The painting perfectly captures her slender figure and her almost otherworldly beauty, emphasizing her youthful allure. After this portrait was painted, Elizabeth's detachment from court life only deepened. She spent increasing amounts of time traveling, often incognito, seeking to escape the public eye and the suffocating formality of Vienna. She became obsessed with maintaining her youth and beauty, engaging in extreme diets and exercise routine. She continued to write poetry, often expressing her feelings of confinement and melancholy under the pen name Titania. Her personal tragedies, particularly Rudolf's suicide, pushed her further into reclusion and mourning, leading her to wear black for the remainder of her life. She was known to be restless and often unhappy, a queen who never truly embraced her role. Her public appearances became rarer and rarer. She was assassinated by an Italian anarchist in Geneva in 1898, a tragic end to a life marked by beauty, privilege, and profound personal struggle. The most intriguing secret or hidden aspect of this portrait lies in the profound contrast between its idealized beauty and the inner turmoil of its subject. While it presents an image of radiant, almost otherworldly perfection, those close to Elizabeth knew the depth of her unhappiness and her constant battle with court life. Art historians often discuss how Winterhalter's portrait, despite its flattering nature, subtly captures the melancholic streak beneath her dazzling exterior, particularly in her averted gaze and the slight curve of her lips. It is said that Elizabeth intensely disliked formal sittings, finding them tedious and confining, which might contribute to the subtle sense of detachment in her expression. The diamond stars, while a symbol of imperial majesty, were also a personal expression of her unique style, a subtle rebellion against the rigid expectations of court jewelry. This portrait, therefore, is not merely a record of her appearance, but a silent testament to a soul longing for freedom, trapped within the gilded cage of imperial duty, forever searching for an escape from the expectations that weighed so heavily upon her. Number 3. Emperor Charles V on horseback by Titian. This portrait is not merely a depiction of a man, but an embodiment of an era and an empire. It captures a moment of immense power and triumph, yet subtly hints at the weariness beneath the armor of the most powerful ruler in 16th century Europe. Charles V, born in Ghent in 1500, was born into an astonishing inheritance. Through a complex web of dynastic marriages, he inherited the Netherlands and Burgundy from his paternal grandmother, including the vast American colonies from his maternal grandparents, and Austria and the right to the Holy Roman Empire from his paternal grandfather. By the age of 19, he was the ruler of a sprawling empire on which the sun never set. His reign was a relentless saga of war, diplomacy, and religious conflict. He tirelessly crisscrossed his vast domains, battling Francis I of France for control of Italy, confronting the Ottoman Empire in the Mediterranean and Central Europe, and grappling with the seismic shifts of the Protestant Reformation. He was a devout Catholic who saw himself as the divinely appointed protector of Christendom. Despite his immense power, he faced constant challenges, both external and internal, and his health, plagued by gout, began to decline in his later years. He was known for his stoicism, his deep piety, and his methodical approach to governance. Contemporary accounts detail his demanding travel schedule, his frequent illnesses, and his unyielding commitment to his imperial duties, often working late into the night. Titian, the celebrated Venetian painter, created this monumental equestrian portrait of Charles V in 1548, shortly after Charles's decisive victory over the Protestant Schmalkaldic League at the Battle of Mühlberg. The painting was a powerful piece of propaganda, commissioned by Charles himself to commemorate this significant triumph and to project an image of himself as an invincible Christian emperor, a modern-day Roman conqueror. Titian was, by this point, already Charles's favored portraitist, having earned the emperor's deep trust and admiration. The creation of such a large and complex work would have been a major undertaking, likely requiring several sittings. It was designed for a grand public display intended to inspire awe and respect across Europe. Reports from the time mentioned Charles's satisfaction with Titian's ability to capture his imperial majesty. In the portrait, Charles V is shown on horseback, clad in a magnificent suit of highly polished dark steel armor, intricately designed and gleaming. He holds a lance in his right hand, pointing slightly upwards, a symbol of military readiness and prowess. His horse, a powerful dark charger, is depicted in a controlled, majestic stride, conveying both power and obedience. The setting is a landscape at dusk, with storm clouds gathering in the background to put a glimmer of light on the horizon, perhaps symbolizing the passing of conflict and the dawn of a new era of peace under imperial rule. Charles's face, though partially obscured by his helmet, shows a stern, determined expression, his jaw set. His famous Habsburg jaw is subtly but unmistakably rendered. Despite the triumphant pose, there is a hint of weariness in his eyes, reflecting the immense burden of his responsibilities and the toll of constant warfare. The rich, deep colors, particularly the dark hues of the armor and horse, contrast with the subtle light on his face, drawing attention to his resolute gaze. The meticulous detail of the armor, the horse's musculature, and the atmospheric landscape demonstrate Titian's unparalleled skill. After this magnificent portrait was completed, Charles V continued his arduous reign for several more years. But the immense strain of governing his sprawling empire and the ongoing religious divisions took their toll. Increasingly plagued by severe gout and a profound sense, Charles made the unprecedented decision to abdicate his various crowns in stages between 1555 and 1556, dividing his empire between his son, Philip II, Spain, Netherlands, American colonies, and his brother Ferdinand I, Holy Roman Empire, and Ost, Holy Roman Empire. He then retired to a small monastery in Eusta, Spain, where he lived a relatively simple life, indulging his hobbies like clockmaking and gardening, until his death in 1558. The contrast between the triumphant image captured by Titian and his eventual retirement from the world dues the fleeting nature of even the greatest power. One of the most intriguing aspects or secrets of this portrait lies in its subtle revelation of the emperor's inner state. While overtly a triumphal image, Titian, with his keen understanding of Charles, incorporated elements that hint at the man behind the myth. The slight weariness in his eyes, the subtle lines around his mouth, suggest a ruler deeply affected by his immense responsibilities and the physical toll of his life. Art historians often point to the painting's dual message: glorious triumph on one hand and the profound cost of empire on the other. It is also rumored that Charles, deeply religious, viewed the victory at Nuremberg as a divine intervention, a belief that Titian may have subtly integrated into the painting's powerful and almost sacred aura. The dark, somewhat brooding atmosphere of the landscape also hints at the ongoing conflicts and challenges that still lay ahead for the emperor, despite this singular victory. The portrait stands as a monumental depiction of power, but also as a quiet testament to the human vulnerability beneath the imperial facade, a moment frozen in time that captures both zenith and exhaustion. Number 2. Infanta Margaret Teresa in a pink dress by Diego Velázquez. This portrait captures the delicate beauty and profound importance of a child whose life was a series of political pawns destined for a role that would link the greatest dynasties of Europe. Infanta Margaret Teresa, born in Madrid in 1651, was the youngest daughter of Philip IV of Spain and Mariana of Austria. She was born into the heart of the Spanish Habsburg court, a world of strict formality, intricate etiquette, and powerful religious devotion. As the only surviving child from her parents' marriage for many years, she held immense dynastic significance, a precious link for the continuation of the Habsburg line in both Spain and Austria. Her childhood was characterized by constant attention, not just from her doting parents, but from the powerful political forces that surrounded her. From an early age, she was a central figure in diplomatic negotiations, destined to become a bride in one of Europe's most important dynastic unions. She was known for her fair complexion, her blonde hair, and her blue eyes, features that were distinctly Austrian and often admired. Her personality, as far as can be gleaned from court records, was bright and engaging, a contrast to the often somber Spanish court. Her family, particularly her mother, Mariana, was deeply invested in ensuring her future marriage solidified the alliance between the Spanish and Austrian branches of the Habsburgs, a crucial political strategy for both houses. She grew up with an awareness of her unique position as a royal child, constantly under scrutiny, and groomed for her predetermined role. Diego Velázquez, the undisputed master of the Spanish Golden Age, painted a series of portraits of Infanta Margaret Teresa throughout her childhood, chronicling her growth and marking her dynastic importance. This particular portrait, showing her in a magnificent pink dress, was painted around 1660 when she was about 9 years old. These portraits were commissioned primarily for her uncle and future husband, Emperor Leopold I in Vienna, serving as visual updates on her appearance and development. Velázquez, as the principal court painter, had unparalleled access to the royal family and a unique ability to capture both their likeness and their inner world. The creation of these portraits was a slow, deliberate process reflecting the high value placed on such representations. Records indicate that her mother, Mariana, personally oversaw these commissions, understanding their critical role in the marriage negotiations. In the portrait, Infanta Margaret Teresa stands against a dark, featureless background, which highlights her pale skin and the vibrant colors of her gown. She wears a lavish, structured pink silk dress with silver trim and bows, a typical fashion of the Spanish court at the time, though perhaps a slightly more youthful version. Her dress is adorned with intricate ribbons and lace, and its wide, bell-shaped skirt dominates the lower half of the canvas. Her blonde hair is styled in a formal, curled fashion, with ribbons and a small crown of flowers. Her face is delicate, with large, expressive blue eyes that gaze directly out at the viewer. Her lips are slightly parted, and her expression is serious yet innocent, conveying a sense of childhood wonder mixed with the gravity of her royal station. Her hands are delicately clasped in front of her. The subtle play of light on the rich fabric of her dress, the shimmering ribbons and the delicate features of her face changes Velázquez's mastery of light and texture. The meticulous detail of her gown emphasizes the immense wealth and artistic sophistication of the Spanish court. After this portrait was painted, Margaret Theresa's destiny unfolded as planned. In 1666, at the age of 15, she journeyed to Vienna to marry her maternal uncle, Emperor Leopold I, who was 11 years her senior. The marriage was a grand affair, celebrating the enduring bond between the Spanish and Austrian Habsburg lines. She became Empress of the Holy Roman Empire, Queen of Bohemia and Hungary. Despite the age difference and the dynastic nature of their union, their marriage was reportedly a happy one, marked by mutual affection and shared interests, particularly in art and music. She bore her husband 4 children, but only one, Maria Antonia, survived to adulthood. A tragic pattern of infant mortality that plagued the Habsburgs. Margaret Theresa, always fragile in health, suffered from frequent illnesses and the strains of repeated pregnancies. She died in Vienna in 1673, at the tragically young age of 21, leaving behind a grieving husband and a legacy as a beloved, if short-lived, empress. One of the most profound secrets or intriguing aspects of this portrait lies in its quiet poignancy. Velázquez captures Margaret Theresa as a child, seemingly unaware of the immense burdens her royal status would place upon her. The portrait, beautiful and regal, subtly hints at the vulnerability of a young girl destined for a life far removed from simple childhood. Art historians often discuss how Velázquez's series of portraits of Margaret Theresa forms a unique visual diary of her brief, significant life, each painting a snapshot of her growing up for a specific political purpose. It is whispered that the vibrant pink color of her dress, while fashionable, also symbolizes the fragility of life and the fleeting nature of childhood, a subtle artistic premonition of her early death. The very act of sending these portraits across Europe was a meticulous diplomatic exercise, each brushstroke carrying political weight. The painting is a silent testament to a life defined by dynastic duty, a precious child, traded across empires, whose ultimate fate was determined long before she ever fully understood. Number 1. Archduke Leopold Wilhelm, in his gallery by David Teniers the Younger. This extraordinary painting offers a rare, intimate glimpse into the world of a Habsburg prince who was more comfortable surrounded by art than by the machinations of power. Archduke Leopold Wilhelm, born in 1614, was the youngest son of Holy Roman Emperor Ferdinand II. Unlike his elder brothers, particularly Ferdinand III, who would succeed to the imperial throne, Leopold Wilhelm was destined for a life in the church. From an early age, he was prepared for a career as a high-ranking cleric, becoming Bishop of Passau, Halberstadt, and Olmütz, and crucially, Grand Master of the Teutonic Order. These positions afforded him significant wealth and influence, but more importantly, a certain degree of freedom from direct political burdens. While he held important religious and military roles, he even commanded the imperial army. During parts of the 30 Years' War, Leopold Wilhelm's true passion lay elsewhere. He was an avid and discerning art collector, amassing one of the most significant private collections of European paintings of his time. He cultivated a deep knowledge of art history and actively sought out masterpieces from across the continent, particularly Italian and Netherlandish works. His court in Brussels, where he served as governor of the Spanish Netherlands from 1647 to 1656, became a vibrant cultural hub, a testament to his patronage. He was known for his scholarly pursuits, his refined taste, and his somewhat reserved intellectual demeanor, preferring the quiet contemplation of art to the boisterous life of a courtier. David Teniers, the Younger, a prominent Flemish painter renowned for his genre scenes and gallery views, created this remarkable painting of Archduke Leopold Wilhelm in his gallery. Around 1651, Teniers was Leopold Wilhelm's court painter and the curator of his magnificent collection, a privileged position that allowed him to capture the Archduke's world with unparalleled authenticity. This painting was not merely a portrait of the Archduke, but also a celebration and documentation of his extraordinary art collection, showing its breadth and quality. It was a visual inventory, a testament to the Archduke's discerning eye and vast wealth. The creation process involved meticulous rendering of dozens of individual paintings, requiring immense skill and patience. From Teniers, who himself was an art connoisseur, reports from the Archduke's court mention his deep personal involvement in cataloging and displaying his collection, often alongside Teniers. In the painting, Archduke Leopold Wilhelm is depicted in a large grand gallery space, filled floor to ceiling with paintings. He stands slightly to the right, a dignified figure in a dark, elegant suit, holding a staff, a symbol of his authority. He is engaged in conversation with several other figures, likely courtiers, advisors, or perhaps fellow art enthusiasts who examine the artworks around him. The Archduke himself gestures towards one of the paintings, indicating his direct involvement and passion. The walls are completely covered with paintings of various sizes and subjects, demonstrating the sheer volume and diversity of his collection: landscapes, portraits, religious scenes, mythological subjects, still lifes. Each painting on the wall, though small in the overall composition, is rendered with enough detail to be recognizable as actual works from his collection, including pieces by Giorgione, Titian, Veronese, Rubens, and Van Dyck. In the foreground, various sculptures, globes, and scientific instruments are displayed on tables, further emphasizing the Archduke's wide-ranging intellectual interests and the typical contents of a Kunstkammer. The light fills the room, illuminating the details of the artworks and the figures. The perspective expertly draws the viewer's eye through the vast space, inviting exploration of the collection. After this painting was created, Leopold Wilhelm continued to serve as governor of the Spanish Netherlands for a few more years, but his health began to decline. In 1656, he resigned from his post and returned to Vienna, bringing his entire vast art collection with him. He spent his remaining years in Vienna, dedicated to his religious duties, and, above all, to curating and enjoying his magnificent art collection. He continued to acquire new pieces, further enriching what was already one of Europe's finest assemblages. He died in 1662. Upon his death, his entire collection was bequeathed to his nephew, Emperor Leopold, the first becoming the foundation of the imperial collection in Vienna, which would eventually form the core of the Kunsthistorische Museum. His legacy, therefore, is not just one of a Habsburg prince, but of a pivotal figure in the history of art collecting and patronage. The most intriguing secret or hidden aspect of this portrait lies in its unusual narrative. Unlike most royal portraits that focus solely on the monarch's individual power or symbolic role, this painting elevates the very act of collecting and connoisseurship to the level of imperial achievement. It reveals a highly personal facet of a Habsburg ruler's life, one not driven by conquest or political ambition, but by a profound love for beauty and knowledge. Art historians often discuss how this painting is a pioneering example of a gallery painting, a genre that celebrates art collections themselves. It is rumored that Leopold Wilhelm personally directed Teniers in the arrangement and selection of the visible paintings in the artwork, effectively creating a portrait of a collection that reflected his own meticulous order and discerning taste. The painting subtly suggests that true power for Leopold Wilhelm lay not just in political dominion, but in the mastery and appreciation of culture. It is a silent testament to a Habsburg who found his deepest satisfaction not in the throne room, but within the walls of his magnificent art gallery.